I think this is the quintessential question of existence. All human consciousness is geared towards being here for a point. Like, what is the point of life? And if we don't feel like we have a purpose or a point in life, then we're directionless. Our life lacks meaning. It lacks a full sense of fulfillment. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Virginia, and you're on the corner of the internet where we stop performing spirituality and start mastering the creation of reality with quantum healing, shadow work, and all things conscious reality creation. So let's get into it. In this video, I want to share with you how to find your purpose. I think this is an important topic for all human beings, all human existence. I think at the heart of our experience of life, our conscious awareness, is this desire to have a purpose for it all, this desire for it to mean something. Nobody wants to live a life of no meaning. And so it is an important topic for us to discuss. And I want to share with you some fundamental principles that will not only help you find your purpose, but create more fulfillment in your whole life. So do let me know in the comments if you're here on the live or the replay. I think I can see a couple of you have jumped in already. How's your vibes today? How has last week been for you? I'm feeling brand new. Because like for a long time since running my conscious business, I put inverted commas because I've been learning some deep lessons these last few months. I've mostly worked a 6-day week. Yeah. And sometimes it would it started edging into working every day. And this isn't the point of today's video, but maybe it is kind of interlinked. And you're running a conscious business. I had a spiritual awakening like over 10 years ago now. But running a business, it does something weird to you where you kind of think there's so much to do all of the time. That is the nature of running a business, that it kind of creeps into your everyday life. And then suddenly it's not so conscious anymore. And I actually had a full weekend off and I feel absolutely amazing. And it's like an epiphany, but an epiphany I learned a long time ago. Like my worth is not tied to how much I do, but it's like I'm having to relearn that lesson again. And that's all that spiritual awakening is just relearning over and over again lessons that we thought we already learned, but in a new way. So yeah, I've got some fresh energy because I've had 2 days off, not just one. So I want to begin with this reminder that purpose isn't something that you find. It's not actually something that you should be looking for. It's something that's integral within your own identity. And oftentimes it's just about rediscovering who you truly are. And your purpose work will then be an outpouring, a natural outpouring of the truth of your identity. So often we're not actually needing to look for something. We're actually needing to remind ourselves of our true identity. We're needing to remember our truth. And this leads to purpose. And an amazing quote from the Bhagavad Gita. I've been drawing on some of my older yoga teacher training teachings for this lesson today, because the yogis, they got it right. Thousands and thousands of years ago, they were searching for fulfillment, searching for purpose ultimately. And they did a lot of groundwork, right, towards the pathway of enlightenment. And along that pathway to enlightenment, we actually want to live a fulfilled life here on this earth plane. So from the Bhagavad Gita, it is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. Gita 3:35. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly, than it is to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. And I think in our society in this present day, it lives off of telling us who we should be and what we should be doing in our everyday lives. And it tells us ultimately that our purpose is to fit into the system and not break the mold. Yeah. But hear this quote: actually, you're better off breaking away from the system. You're actually better off living your life messy and authentic. That is more your path to purpose than it is to fit into the mold of what society tells you should be. Because is all that society really wants to do is either sell us something or control us or manipulate us to certain behaviors that are not for the betterment of all, are oftentimes just for the betterment of a very small percentage of the people that are on this planet, right? And so I think the first lesson is actually not one that I've written down, but the first lesson, your purpose, is actually to break the mold. And yeah, it was in the intro, to know yourself so fully, to know your own identity, to remember it so fully that your act of living is a rebellion. Right? In itself, that could be your purpose work. If you just lived as your true identity more, you'd be activating some exit points, not only from the matrix for you, but for many other people, because you become like this beacon of light of it's okay to be yourself, to live differently. So I've got seven steps to the pathway to purpose that I want to share with you. But before we go into that, I do want to go into some basics of the yoga teachings, because this is the foundation. Why are we looking for purpose? Is ultimately, most of us think that it's a key to more happiness, more fulfillment in life. And yoga teaches some 4 fundamental principles that can lead us to a more fulfilled life. But it also, in the last principle itself, gives you a full exit point, because what the Buddha ultimately teaches is that in any wanting, if we want happiness, right? If we chase happiness, if we chase money, if we chase fulfillment, if we chase purpose, even if we get so caught up in our conscious business and our purpose work that we stop taking weekends off, is it really a purpose? Is it really a path to ultimate freedom, ultimate fulfillment, the exit point of suffering? No. There's something else to these fundamental principles to fulfillment, everlasting fulfillment that can't be ticked off of a box here in this physical reality. So the first one of these is your Dharma. And you may have heard of the word Dharma before. Let me know in the chat, in the comments, if you're here on the live. Hey, Fiona, good to see you. Have you heard of Dharma? What is Dharma? And I think this is shared a lot, this word, in the spiritual community. I'm doing it for my Dharma. I'm doing it ultimately for my purpose, my service to the world. And Dharma itself, the root of Dharma is actually support, unwavering support. It's not just giving to charity or doing good for others. Unwavering support is a foundation. It's a foundation for living. And in that Dharma, we have to prove basically our worthiness to be a steward of support and safety in our own lives before we can truly fulfill a bigger purpose. Okay? So collectively, as humanity, we have a massive Dharma, I would say. We're here on the time of this planet of the Great Awakening, of a massive time of change. However you look at it, planetary alignments are pointing to this massive change. We feel it in our hearts that there's a big change. We see it in the media, there's a big change. So collectively, we have a massive Dharma. But our true Dharma, it actually starts with ourselves. And I will go a little bit deeper into that. But one of the core fundamental principles that yoga teaches for a life of fulfillment, number one is Dharma, is service. And lots of us would just really point that to what is true purpose. It is service oftentimes. The second one is Artha. Now, Artha is prosperity and wealth. And oftentimes we find in many traditional interpretations of religion or spiritual practices that they say, wealth is a little bit evil, don't be chasing money. But it doesn't mean in the sense of chasing money for fulfillment. It means in a sense of being a fulfilled human being on this planet and to be of good service, to actually be able to serve your Dharma. You do have to have a certain level of wealth, because if you're always in scarcity, if you're always in lack, you are not going to be able to pour from an overfilling cup. You won't be actually in a space to give your service to the world. And I was in this time of my life, of my spiritual awakening, where I wanted to reject all material things. And there is certain beautiful learnings in that. I think everyone, when they go on this journey of connecting with the truth of their soul, unshackling themselves from these chains of the matrix that tell us to chase more all of the time, there is such a beautiful experience of just letting that all go and saying, no, I don't need money. I'll live without it. I can be happy without it because I've got this call in my heart that I'm so much more than this physical world. But in that rejection, oftentimes that chapter will end and you'll realize actually living without is causing so much struggle in my life that I'm actually unfulfilled and I'm actually unhappy. And there's many people in the world and many things of service that I want to do in the world, but I'm absolutely powerless to do that. So yoga teaches us Artha is a core pillar, core foundation of fulfillment, and then it actually leads to your purpose. It leads to your Dharma, your fulfillment of your massive purpose in this life, because you have wealth, you have a foundation. Raja, detachment matters massively. And I think that the full-on cycle of detachment can come from learning that you can live without. There was a beautiful chapter of my life when I was in Thailand, traveling in Thailand, like 7 or 8 years ago now. I held a little retreat there for donations at a place where I was teaching yoga in a hostel. And I didn't have any money for like so many months. I think like 5-6 months of my travel, like I spent all of my money in the initial 2 months. I'd gone with a little tiny rucksack. Didn't have any money, but made loads of friends, taught yoga for donations. I got a meal at that hostel and I had lived in a bunk bed. And it was a great time of my life. But then ultimately, what I did learn is I couldn't live like that forever if I was to really follow my intuitive knowings of the impact that I wanted to create here on this world. Tony says Jeffrey. I don't know why you're saying Jeffrey. What did I say? Monica hasn't heard of him. Well, I survived off of the grace of God. Raja, that's how I survived in Thailand. You know, God will provide. When you're still at the heart of it, I was doing my spiritual work, you know, sharing knowledge, sharing keys of knowledge. But at some point then it gets tiring, right? And you can't do anymore because you don't have that stability, that Artha. The third one is kama, so pleasure, actually having things in your life that you enjoy. Maybe this is art, maybe this is creativity, dancing, going to the beach. For a true life of fulfillment, we do need to have pleasure. And again, so much in some of the more traditional spiritual teachings, we often find that it's like live without and live in so much resistance that you're kind of like paying this price for being a human, an ultimately damaged human. But no, true fulfillment actually does come from giving space to have a weekend off, giving space to have pleasure in your life. And then the fourth pillar of fulfillment, foundation towards your ultimate purpose, is moksha. And moksha is liberation, it's freedom. And this is what the Buddha would teach, is that the ultimate doorway to leaving suffering behind, to not suffer, is through your spiritual connection and through meditation, through silence, through inner connection. Because we learn on the pathway to any of these things, chasing wealth, chasing purpose, chasing our pleasures, going to the beach, having a chocolate bar, having a chocolate cake, right? At some point we get to this stage where it's like, it's not enough. It's not enough because happiness is fleeting. I could enjoy a chocolate cake today and then tomorrow maybe I lose all of my money in a bad investment and I don't have money for chocolate cake. Things change. The thing that we can guarantee in life is change. And so if we're always attached to a certain physical aspect, or we're even attached to our identity of fulfilling a massive purpose in this world, we're always going to come to this point of change. Your purpose work will change. Maybe it doesn't work anymore. Maybe people don't want to listen to you anymore, right? Your purpose work could change because you ran out of money. There's so many things that change in this life. So if we're always chained to these specific things, we will never have ultimate freedom. Ultimate freedom comes from our spiritual practice. It comes from this deep meditation that we can get to. I had a little taste, a little inkling of that one time in Vipassana, where I was labeling pain in my body. And then ultimately I was also saying in the background of my mind this affirmation, I am divine love. And these two things intertwined in this moment. I had a massive activation in my body of bliss, because the pain in that moment, as I labeled it with love, it ceased to exist. This is our freedom, right? When anything in our external reality changes, we're not actually attached to the outcome anymore. And it is a continuous remembrance, right? Like I just said at the beginning, I forget some of these principles because this is the nature of humanity. We can get swept away in certain things in our lives, and we have to be there for each other to remind ourselves and each other to stay on that path. Yeah. So these foundations, these 4 pillars will create fulfillment, overall fulfillment. But of course, the title is purpose, and that is so much connected to our Dharma. So what are our 7 steps, our 7-step pathway to finding purpose? Let me know. Oh, Jeffrey Dharma. This is the thing. When I do this live, it's like I get distracted by these comments that are just so unrelated, and I talk so fast I forget what I've said before. Thanks, Tony, keeping me on track normally. Raja. Facts. Yeah, I was considering leaving Thailand real soon. Oh, so you're in Thailand now. Whereabouts? So just before I do go into the 7-step pathway to finding your purpose, do let me know in the chat what you think some of those steps could be. And then I do want to read you this scriptural passage from the Bhagavad Gita. And this is called the Yoga of Action and Peace. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, nor should you become attached to inaction. Be steadfast in yoga or Arjuna. Perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga. It's balance, it's union of the self, continuous union of the self. Just as the ocean remains undisturbed by the incessant flow of waters from rivers merging into it, so the wise one who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. That person who lives completely free from desires, without a sense of mine or the ego of I, attains true peace. It's beautiful, right? Such a beautiful reminder. So my 7-step pathway to finding your purpose. So number 1 is the small purpose rule. So we touched on it a little bit in discussing the true interpretation of Dharma. Dharma being your service, and often we interpret it as service to the world. Like, what's my massive purpose? This big change that I can create on the planet. Can we overcome the dark lords of this universe? That's often been my purpose, like for a long time since spiritual awakening. Like, let's take these down, right? But no. Your true Dharma, it starts with the small things. The small purpose rule. The yoga teaches that your first Dharma is actually to yourself. Your first purpose is to yourself. And so if we're to have unwavering support for the self, if we're to honor the first purpose work that we're given, actually our purpose work starts with looking after our body, eating healthily, getting good rest, making sure our space that we inhabit in is clean and maintained. If you have a garden, making sure that your garden is maintained because nobody else will do it. If you have a pet or children, right? You are creating the unwavering support for those around you, those that are in your care. And this is the part of purpose work that a lot of people just gloss over. We want the shiny big purpose because we're attaching it to desire, to fulfillment of something, right? The mind really wants that validation a little bit from purpose. But what yoga teaches is that the universe itself, source, God consciousness, will actually never deliver the pathway to our bigger purpose if we don't take care of the smaller purpose first. So we got to get honest with ourselves. Is my nervous system crying out for a whole weekend off? And I'm saying, no, I must complete my purpose work. I must overcome the dark lords of this universe, right? Let me chain myself to my laptop, even though I want to go to the beach, right? No, I'm not fulfilling my small purpose. I'm not looking after my body, my mental health as well as I could. Yeah. So body, mind, and soul, this will also come into meditation. I'm kind of giving away one of the steps that's later on, right? Body, mind, and soul. Are you already completing this small purpose of maintaining your own body, mind, and soul? Healthy foods, hydration, going for a walk, being out in nature. Are you looking after your pets, your family in the best way that you can? Fulfill these small purposes first. It demonstrates to the universe that you're able to do that. And what you'll do is you'll unlock a pathway to your bigger purpose. The second step to your pathway to purpose is noticing or remembering where along your path you've had your most painful experiences and learned how to overcome them. Oftentimes it is our struggles, it is the things that we've had to overcome in life that is what has been put on our path for a reason. Not just for us to suffer, not for us just to have pain, but from that pain to actually turn it into that seed of pleasure or pathway to divinity for somebody else on this planet, right? For a long time, I mean, since I've started sharing my coaching, I've said at the heart of what I want to do is there's so many times in my life where I was distracted, where I didn't have the information I needed. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone to help me, to tell me what was going on in my body. It didn't tell me why I was always getting trapped in these unhealthy relationships, why I was always getting rejected. Nobody taught me how to exit the matrix until much later on in my life, right? I was awakened for so long and I struggled for so long. The culture right now is very different. I didn't have so many, there just wasn't so many answers. And so my purpose has been to make sure there's many people out there that don't need to struggle for as long as I did to find the answers. And I've got a little bit way there. And then, you take 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, maybe here and there. And that's okay. That's the nature of life. But my pain has been my pathway to my purpose. So do let me know in the chat, what pain have you overcome in your life that you could help somebody else to as well now, as a part of that transmutation of that suffering? My third one is slaying the shoulds. So we say, I should achieve this number in my business. I should achieve this. I must do this because my parents want me to, or right? Society says I'm a good human if if I have this or I do this, right? On our pathway to purpose, we have to get to know our true selves. We have to get to know what lights us up fully. And the only way that we can do that, there's a couple of things actually. There's 2 ways that we can do that. Allowing ourselves more play and creativity. But before even we feel safe for that, we got to do the inner work, right? I share a form of quantum healing called Quantum Ho'oponopono, which has changed my life and many other people's lives. I'm sharing some of it in the Consciousness Coherence Mastermind next week. If you want to join and you're on the YouTube, the link is below. And I'll put it on here on the Facebook in the comments before I close out. The shadow work gives you the safety in your energetic body, also in your nervous system, to actually help your inner child feel safe. When the inner child feels safe, that's your true identity. And once we unlock that and find it again, our pathway to purpose becomes more clear. We know what truly lights us up and what we enjoy, not based off what somebody else says we should do. And so it's very linked to my next point, which is play more, be creative. How many times in our lives as an adult have we gone through periods or chapters or maybe years where all we do is mundane things and we don't have a little dance, right? We don't have a little sing-song on the way to work. We don't create. There's no art in our lives, right? This is a pathway to purpose. The more you create, the more you follow your joy, the more, again, your inner child feels safe. And once they do, then your purpose just becomes a natural outpouring of this expression of joy in your life and what you're passionate about, right? It can be an amalgamation. For example, me doing this live. I feel alive because I'm communicating with you guys. I was the little girl that used to do little shows on the hill of my school field and encourage everyone else to do little dance shows with me. It's similar, right? It's my joy, but it's also combined with the pain I've experienced, yeah? Helping other people to not go through that pain. So my next one, number 5, is travel as a catalyst. So we spoke about my experiences in Thailand, but travel is such a beautiful way to unlock your path to purpose, because along the way, through travel, you unlock or remember little pieces of your identity that just wouldn't have been unlocked if you'd stayed in your town that you grew up in, that you were born in, because you're surrounded by the same people, the same environment, and all they're doing is just reflecting back to you so often your old programming that doesn't serve your highest good, the layers of false identity that we know we need to keep in place to actually fit into this small box of where we grew up, because all of these people know us only as this identity. It's a shackle. It's literally like wearing handcuffs on your truth sometimes. Depends where you grow up, of course, but for many places, there's just so many people around you that know you as one thing. They actually hold these thought forms and beliefs about you that are in the ether, and they lower your vibration and keep you locked in an identity that actually isn't your truth. So even if it's just going to a town, I don't know, going for dinner, going for a little walk in the countryside in 3 towns over, that could be enough. But oftentimes a foreign country, you'll just start to realize, whoa, there's different vibrations in different cultures, and this activates and unlocks a new part of my truth, a new part of my identity. And then through that new expression, purpose becomes much more natural. So number 6 is core value alignment. Core value alignment. So we need to know what we truly value in life. If we're not clear on that, then oftentimes we fall into copycat mode, looking at somebody else and how they're making their life work, and they're telling us, oh, this is your pathway to freedom, maybe watching videos like this, but you haven't got really clear on what it is that you value in life, okay? I might be describing to you, pathway to freedom is to move to Thailand, but you value family, you value stability. Okay, so it might mean that you just take a little holiday and come back, right? It wouldn't be that you go on a 6-month travel journey to find yourself. Depends what you value. So you've got to get really clear on what your top values are before making decisions, because ultimately, we can get a little bit down the line and realize that we're living somebody else's life, even if they had the best intentions for us, right? Okay, and then the final one, I left it till last because it's the most important. We kind of touched on it at the beginning. It's meditation. Meditation is the only pathway to true liberation. It's not the jazzy answer. It's not the massive purpose of defeating the dark lords of the universe, right? It might be. I think actually it is. I think it is. Sorry, null and void that. I think it is. But the pathway, the actual doing of the meditation, right? It's not jazzy, it's not fireworks, it's consistent action towards something overall. Doesn't give you a lot of results for a long time. You sit in silence, not a lot happens. You sit in silence, you sit a little longer, you turn up to the practice year after year, right? You keep staying dedicated to the practices, also connected with raising your vibration, looking after your body, looking after your main purpose, this physical body, combined with meditation over a long period of time. This is the pathway to true liberation. But again, it's not jazzy because the results, they're slower. And this is something that I find in our community at the moment, in this stage of awakening that we're at. We're getting a little bit swept away with fast results because it's a very good ploy for marketing. Yeah, I say I've got a 12-week program to be, oh my God, 12 weeks. We can't do it anymore. We need it now, and we need it faster. But true spiritual awakening, true pathways to freedom, they take time. It's not a 4-week instantaneous result. And I've drawn away from promising people like instantaneous fast results from things that don't It can take a whole lifetime, but it will be worth it, because overall, if it took you a whole lifetime to find ultimate liberation, literally, if it took you 30 years to reach enlightenment and then you didn't have to plug yourself back into the matrix ever again, would it be worth it? Yeah, 100%. I say yes. Okay, so meditation, pathway to freedom, pathway to your purpose, your ultimate purpose, to defeat the dark lords of the universe. Yeah. So my closing message. Actually, no, I think I said it, but I'm going to say it again. My little quote here. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. And our passage again, the yoga of action and peace. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, nor should you become attached to inaction. Be steadfast in yoga or Arjuna. Perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga. Just as the ocean remains undisturbed by the incessant flow of water from rivers merging into it, so the wise one who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. That person who lives completely free from desires, without a sense of mine or the ego of I, attains true peace. All right, so that's my little lesson today. Yeah, Frank, patience is part of the path. Exactly. All right, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm going to see you on the next one.